your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Reverend Dr. D, and my very special guest returning to the program, Virendra Sign David, and we're grateful and thankful that he is joining us again because he's going to share with us, I think, a story that everybody needs to hear because it is a unique story, but then again, it's not so unique because there are hundreds, thousands, millions of people over the last century or so who have come to this country from other countries seeking the land of opportunity. And Virendra, I want to thank you once again for joining us here on the program. You also, by the way, living in Santa Barbara, are the owner of Mesa Pizza, which, by the way, awesome wings, awesome pizza, and you make your own ranch dressing. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you so much for having me back again. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are celebrating what is referred to as your 40th anniversary of the journey of you being a foreigner, becoming pretty well known there in the Santa Barbara area, both commercially with the businesses that you have, but also you have, I want to say, a philanthropic aspect, but from the standpoint that you are helping people in, if I'm correct, South Africa, to build something that's community based, that was long lasting, and so forth. And we're going to talk about all these things. But where are you from originally? And by the way, is your wife also from this other part of the world?
So we are third generation South African. Our parents came from India during the migration of the sugarcane planters that were needed in South Africa at that time. My grandparents came as business people in around 1910, and this is the father's side of my family. They are part Hindu, part Sikh. So we grew up in both those faiths. And we all Indians from South Africa originally went to Durban, Natal, which was the last British colony. Therefore, I have a slight accent of British origins. If you were from any other province in South Africa, the mode of language was mainly Afrikaans, and people spoke in either Afrikaans or a sort of a dialect similar to Afrikaans, but you have a large Black population who had like many different ethnic languages, and they spoke their own language and a form of Afrikaans, since that was a medium of communication. Anyway, so back to us. We landed in South Africa. My grandparents, they themselves were very into humanitarian work, and my grandfather, on both sides, were involved in building the first orphanage for the immigrants in South Africa, in Durban. And it was called Aryan Benevolent Home, commonly known as ABH. And my mother's side of the family came from immigrants of Indian descent, but who lived in Mauritius, a little island in the Indian Ocean. They came also to South Africa, met each other, and my dad, who owned multiple businesses, eventually got his doctorate with a doctorate in law, and left the country for different reasons. And this was during the height of apartheid. And me growing up, we grew up in a suburb so similar to downtown Santa Barbara. The homes were that of Victorian style, and we had the great opportunity to interact with all races at that time in that place. Even though apartheid was fully entrenched, there were certain areas that were so-called gray areas. Ironically, the name of the place was Greyville, and we had the opportunity not of just meeting different races, but we had mosques, synagogues, churches all around us. And in fact, my dad would um, bring a chair out on Sunday afternoons to let the little lovely old lady who would come as a minister to preach about Christ and ask us questions. And when we got it right, gave us sweets and so forth. So we grew up in a very multi faith, multi race society in that little area of ours. And I have two other brothers and one sister. And growing up during apartheid era, under the Group Areas Act, they came and wanted us out of that area. So we were forced to leave to our current location, which was about 15 minutes out of Durban, called Red Hill. And my dad bought that place. And just to digress a little, that's the place. I purchased two other lands next to it, and I'm building this senior center and a multi faith prayer place. But growing up there, uh, because we lived in what we call town, we also lived the pure American life. We loved American movies, American culture, American cars. My dad had many of them, including the Ford Mustangs, convertible 65, 69, and the 65 original. And that's, yeah, of course, led me to falling in love with those cars. And eventually, I grew up and studied law. And it was the last year of my law when, although we grew up in that era, we were a little bit privileged in that we grew up in a large extended household. And my oldest brother, Suresh, was very instrumental in taking care of us, including our uncle and aunt, because my dad had left the country. Um, and I on my last year of studying law and having 11 vehicles, I used to love doing body work and did a little crash course in arc welding, gas welding, besides law. My visa to the US came through. And at that time, we were watching movies like Greek Tycoon with Jacqueline Bisset, and Olivia Newton-John was hot, and the Bee Gees. And when it came through, I had a friend who was coming to study photography in Santa Barbara, in the US. So he went to Oakland, but found that Brooks was the best college in the US and possibly the world in photography. He decided to move here. I said, I'm coming to visit him and then go to Hollywood and go back home. But fate has its other plans, and my destiny was on my second day of arrival. I arrived on a Friday night. Saturday, looked at Santa Barbara. And Durban is very much like San Diego, very close to 30 degrees south latitude, San Diego north. Our topography, geography, climate, everything is very close to San Diego. So I found Santa Barbara a little bit too small. And then on Sunday morning, trying to cook for the first time in my life, I burnt my hand and legs with oil, and that forced me to stay here. And I stayed, and the wonderful people of Santa Barbara helped me uh, to go to the doctors to keep on going for treatment. At that time, thinking I'm going back home. And of course, I changed my studies and had it converted here to US equivalency of law, and still thinking I may go back home. But I was falling in love with this place. And eventually, I worked in a body shop, McDonald's, and then always been hungry. I worked in a little pizzeria, went back home, brought my girlfriend in, who ended up being my wife. And we both, at that time, we both got jobs with Kinko's. So we had an incredible run with Kinko's. I worked directly under Paul Offler, learned a lot. And he was great, very into doing humanitarian work. And his two nephews, Harry and Eric, who had stores in Studio City, Van Nuys, they got me into feeding in Skid Row, which I then progressed into helping in Santa Barbara and doing a little volunteer work in the legal aid. And eventually, we met an accident that left my wife and I very badly injured. And the little money we had at that time, 4 years later of coming in the country, I bought a home in Goleta that I still live in. At that time, it was Santa Barbara until they divided it. And I bonded my home and was lucky enough to purchase a pizzeria in Solvang. And that was the start of my growth in business. And eventually, the same year, I bought Mesa Pizza and then Isla Vista. And a few years later, La Bamba Market, Brownies Market, and some apartments and homes. But continued my philanthropic work throughout the time. And I always, in doing so, and like I said, with my family back home and doing the same thing and me traveling the world, this is something I found out that I would love people to believe me, that there are no greater, more giving people in this world than that of the US, especially here in Santa Barbara. In
Mm.
Santa Barbara, people are so generous in every manner. Not when people talk of generosity, that equate it to financial. Well, it's not just financial. It's their time, their love, their expertise, their open armness. E- We have the most giving people in the world that give away. And in part of my philanthropic work that I do a lot of free consultation for in legal aspects, whether it's family, wills, trusts, and so forth, accounting, business opportunities. And that is something that I've been doing in a general form for the past 40 years.
Mm. Well, I'll tell you, you have done an awful lot in this short 40 years that you have been here and accomplished much and helped a lot of people. And I was most gratified and grateful to have met you a few years back. And am glad that I know you. You are also a member, if I am correct, you are also a member of the Sikh community, which is what you were born and raised and have been following, but not so much exclusively as much as it just happens to be your foundation. But you also are involved with interfaith. shall we say, even interreligious, if you will, philosophies. And that's something that I would like to talk a little bit more about as we continue. We're talking with the Virendra Singh, and we're talking with him here on Tell Me Your Story. The philosophies that I'm talking about, Virendra, who is my guest here on the program, are intriguing to me because there are so many on the planet, and yet there are some that are going off in directions that I certainly would not want to go. It's not my not not the direction that I'm looking for the more peaceful, if you will, um, kind, if you will, philosophies that are there to help and support people. And that's what you're involved in, both from a business standpoint and philanthropic. But let's talk a little bit about the interfaith work that you are involved in as you are creating positive roles for interfaith gatherings.
Well, yes, that has become my latest passion. Uh, Originally, I opened the Indian Association of Santa Barbara, and at that time, people were they were, they had very little knowledge of what Indian culture, tradition, and even the religion was all about. Of course, like we have the Greek festival, the French festival, I decided to have the first Indian festival in Oak Park to basically showcase all of that to our local community because we had at that time a very small Indian community. And even though they are growing now, my target was the general Santa Barbara populace. And it turned out to be one of Santa Barbara's biggest one day festival because we held it on the same day as the Harbor Festival. Unbeknownst to us, that is a very drawing of crowd festival. And I was blew everyone out of the water because people loved and wanted everything in terms of Indian food, culture, music. As you know, it's a lot of color, a lot of great different foods, and of course, music, dance. From that, it transitioned. Of course, I opened like the Santa Barbara Convenience Store Association, the Isla Vista Business Association, but still doing so-called interfaith work in our store in Isla Vista, also called Mesa Pizza. We opened the UCSB Buddhist Association to so the local Buddhists will have a student representative from the UCSB campus and the area, and they didn't have a place to call home. In respect to interfaith, what I did, it all eventually culminated in one of the basic things in Sikhism is similar to Christianity, which is breaking bread together. And we have that in every of our Sikh temples called Gurudwaras. Guru means teacher, Dwar means door. The main temple in India, in Amritsar, um, it's called the Harminder Sahib or Golden Temple. It has four doors, indicative of inviting people of all different religions. And that's what our faith basically espouses. We have just three main pillars, which is one, believe in God, two is do honest work diligently, and the last is share everything you have. So, with that main principles in mind, the first guru realized kings sit in a throne way up above, and ministers are below them, and the common people below them, and different levels of people. He said, "Let's us all sit on the floor and eat and break bread together, and in that way we are all equal." So equality is very important in Sikhism. Equality, you take it to the hilt, and I'll explain that later. So I decided to have, instead of always, all these years I've been involved in giving away free food to the homeless and poor. This time, change it, give it to everybody. So I approached the city to get permission to host the term langar, which is free kitchen, do that on State Street. And we did that in April. We got the city's and the health department's blessings. And it was a great success. But it didn't start that way because we had all the posters, free food, and of course, we were dressed in our traditional garb and a little poster explaining who we are. But people were skeptical, firstly, about anything free. Secondly, free Indian food. Indian food is so expensive. They love it. They could smell it. But when we started to literally tell people, come by, it's really free. And once people started coming, we gave away over 500 boxes of Indian food. And this was done in conjunction with the Sikh Association of UCSB, the kids there, who did a marvelous job in cooking and bringing the food. Um, so that was a great success. And most recently, I just approached the city to do this again, but with a slight difference. So, over the years, like you said, I've always been involved in all the other faiths and their projects, but a little bit differently because we have a lot of people doing interfaith. And how they do it is just the clergy of those faiths are invited to places and you basically talk and understand each other's religion. I believe in order to spread the harmony, peace, and love, we need to educate the people within each faith. So I have asked to do that, and I have had wonderful responses from our churches, our mosques, and so forth. And I decided the next langar I'm going to do on State Street again will be an interfaith langar. So my idea is to involve the communities, not just the clergy, of the different faiths to come alongside us and show a united front in every manner and ask the congregation attending to bring even a little packet of biscuits or some chips and put it on the table, but take the time to serve the community for 20 minutes or so and feel the joy of giving away to people. And, food brings people together.
Mhm.
And therefore the term breaking bread. So that's the future of part of my interfaith work.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I wish you delivered
The new
all the
form.
way out here into the into the mountains north of Los Angeles.
Oh,
You know, maybe what I'll do is I'll have to get it one of those those one of those drones that carries heavy stuff and fly it over there, and you tell me where, and I'll bring it down, and you put the thing in there, and I'll bring it back.
wonderful idea.
I tell you, it's amazing the technologies, and the other thing too about this is that there are extremes in all almost all philosophies. I doubt there are extremists in Buddhism or Sikhism, and some might categorize them as the more pacifistic philosophies. However, there are also extremes in some of the major philosophies, if you will, Christianity, Muslim, and unfortunately even Judaism too, because of what we're seeing in the Middle East right now. But what we want to focus on is the core of these philosophies that has been taught down through the centuries, regardless of the name that you put to it. That, as I said, there are always extremes, but then there's almost an extreme to the other direction, saying, "Look, this is not what the master or the founder or what have you was teaching about." I mean, I was even for a period of time, I was in the I want to say the early 1990s. I was a member of the Baha'i faith for about a year and a half. And it was a matter of fact, what's so fascinating about that was the fact that as we were unpacking, I'm opening up these crates with the books and so forth in them. I came across, I couldn't believe the number of books and pamphlets and so forth that I collected in that short year and a half that mean a great deal to me because of the philosophy. And we could learn so much. I think about, too, the Native American traditions and the fact that even this country and its founding adopted certain aspects of some Native American traditions. That's where our Congress comes from, the Native American tradition. But it's something that we are trying to learn from one another, and that's what you're trying to share with us here on the program as we talk with Virendra Singh, and we're going to continue our conversation. Just a reminder that this is Tell Me Your Story: New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Speaking of dreams coming true, Virendra, 40 years ago, what was your dream? And here we are 40 years later. And what is your dream?
Wonderful question. When I was a little kid, I loved drawing. I could draw the American flag beautifully. And the flag would be in a mountainous area. I drew the mountains, little home, like the so-called hut-thatched home, with the elephant and a horse that I eventually drew beautifully, with a Mustang parked next to it. The dream of coming to the US, and of course my initials VVS. So the two V's with the S turned out to be a dollar sign. And I always wanted to come to the US. Therefore, when I got my visa, all of a sudden, the US meant not just California, but of course, my idea was to travel the US, and my dream did come true. Working all at that time during apartheid era, we weren't allowed to go to different universities. We weren't allowed to actually hold certain positions. So I fell in love with law because of my dad. And but I knew even then I would rather work for a corporation under someone who'll appreciate me. I found that in Kinko's Paul Offler, which was an incredible run. So my dream did come true. In South Africa, my dad, like I said, was very involved with taking us to and doing philanthropic work with the old age, with the kids, and religious works with interfaith. And when I came here and enjoyed what the beauty of this country and the people had to give, and one of my main things that I always espouse to all other foreigners, we need to give back more. Paying our taxes is not good enough because we enjoy things like the road, the libraries, public areas that all your forefathers built and we enjoy. We need to give back more. As for my dream of interfaith, I did that in 2019 in the same festival I held on one section of Oak Park. I created a place where I invited all the other faiths to come and showcase their religion, not propagate, showcase. And I was told this will never work. It cannot work. People will have arguments, and I had a lot of negativity towards it. And eventually, I said I want to do it, and if it cannot work in Santa Barbara, it can't work anywhere else. Well, it worked with great success. That spurned the thought of continuing my interfaith work, which eventually culminated right now in me forming the following domain names: interfaith.international, Hinduism.international, Sikhism.international, Buddhism.international, Judaism.international. But Islam and Christianity was taken over. But in
Oh,
the world today, yeah, those two, someone else beat me to it. But in the world today, those are the only two faiths that experience inter intra-faith violence amongst each other. Even though the Protestants and Catholics don't go at it as much as like they used to, I decided to get the domain name Christianity Intrafaith International
mm,
and Islam Intrafaith International. So that's something I aim to give to those clergies to say, within your own sect, there's so much of differences going on, how about having one common place where you all can talk? And you mentioned Baha'i. I we through the delivery always delivered to the Baha'i Birth uh, synagogue in Santa Barbara, and I got to experience their faith. And what was incredible about it was their belief in prophets from all religions,
Mm-hmm.
including Krishna and Guru Nanak.
Yeah.
And I found that incredibly attractive. But if you focus on negativity, trust me, Richard, you would find it even in Buddhism and Sikhism.
Yeah.
So what we do is I focus only on the commonality of each religion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that goes across very well because even if you're in a social setting, you go out to to whatever meeting it is, people tend to flock together by asking common questions. Hey, what do you do? I do the same thing. Or whether it's from business to uh, fun things like cars, we all have the same Mustangs. Let's do breakfast runs. Certain commonalities bring us together,
Mm-hmm.
and the love that's in each religion, the peace that is in each religion. Like people say, Islam, a religion of violence. But did you know the first greeting of Islam is Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you. So you would, and in Hinduism, it is simply Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, our Creator, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So, and in Christianity, it is in Buddhism, in Judaism. So that's what I focus on, and that's what I'll continue focusing on.
Mm. Well, I know that to quote Baha'u'llah in what you said, if you accept one of the messengers of God, you accept them all. If you reject one of the messengers of God, you reject them all. And I
Beautiful.
think that that is a place where we need to come from and get away from the nationalistic mentality, if you will, of the extreme arms of some of these philosophies, because it's one of the things that I found fascinating. And I kind of got into trouble with this about 15, well, about 25, 30 years ago when I was working back in Phoenix for the Christian station. And maybe it's even longer than that. And I made the comment that Christianity, talking to the people that were there, sort of answering phones for the call-in show, do you know that Christianity is a metaphysical philosophy? Oh, no, no, it's not. No, no. I said, do you even know what the word means? And of course, the word defined is beyond the physical, which is predominantly what Yeshua spoke of in the New Testament. The New Testament, and specifically the Gospels. It was all about the non physical. The kingdom of God is within you. Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Well, where is heaven? It's within you, and so forth and so on. And many of the other philosophies around the world, they're metaphysical as well, because though they will address certain issues of the physical nature. See, so for example, what was said by Yeshua, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. Well, what is God's? You. And so forth and so on. And of course, we can also get into the conversation about the unity and the oneness that we all share, that there is only we are all a best way to describe this, a film I saw in high school where they were showing initially holograms, and they had this huge piece of glass that had been treated in a certain way, and then a picture was imposed on it, and it was a hologram, and you would turn it and it would move and everything. Then they broke the glass, and every single piece of glass, every shard as well as large piece, contained the whole image. That's us. We are those shards, if you will, of that broken hologram. And as we grow, we try to sort of reconstruct the large piece of glass the pain, if you will, the big picture. We're all part of that. And to look at the material world is to look at the differences. By the way, there's a beautiful television series that was on back in, I think it was 2010 or 11. It starred Kiefer Sutherland. Sutherland. I finally found it, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to. It's called Touch,
Hmm.
and oh, and it spoke to that very aspect of how we are all interconnected, and how that our paths come together and cross for a reason. And sometimes we are together with people for a long, long period. I had a best friend who has since passed away. We were best friends for 53 years. I was married for 15 years to my first wife. I still am connected to my siblings and my mother. She's 92 this September. And she is still going strong. Every time I talked with her on the phone, um, she just has this strength in her voice. And I comment on that with her too. I said, "Oh, you're sounding good. You sound like you're just having a great time." Though I know she misses my father, her husband. She's also feeling the freedom that she has probably not felt for a long, long time, and enjoying her life. So we're all here crisscrossing. And I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, this hypnosis therapy called Life Between Lives with a Dr. Newton. I've read his case study books that are available. And he talks about these clusters that we are members of. And the clusters are made up of all of the people that you come in contact with, close as well as distant. And it changes from lifetime to lifetime if one chooses to believe in the aspect of reincarnation, which I do. And we will, in a particular lifetime, come together and our paths will cross, and they might go parallel for a short or a long time. I mean, my parents were married for almost 62 years. They were together for a long time.
Wow.
Um, and what you are all about in the work that you are doing is to foster this aspect of community, and maybe going beyond that to oneness. That we affect one another, we impact one another, and we
Yes.
change one another. It's one of the interesting things too. I remember some of these. Some of the I don't want to say that they were necessarily rules. It's like one of my general managers, my first commercial station manager. He lived by the law of diminishing returns. All right, fine. But there's a couple of others, these old sayings, how you can't change other people. And what I found out as I was growing in this ever changing philosophical search was, yes, you can. Now, you don't do it consciously per se, but you change the people around you by changing yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's what you're
Absolutely.
doing. You and your wife and your family, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Richard, to just go back on your very first comment, the kingdom of God is within you. That's pure Hindu/Sikh philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we believe in.
Yeah.
With our short time, I'm going to quickly jump onto when you said humanity, all are one. In Sikhism, we had Hinduism going there for a long time. We had Islam, and in Hinduism, the the changing of the way Hinduism was practiced, which started totally monastic religion, and monasticism continued until after the Vedas, and then gods were personified. Nature was personified as God. Sorry, and from then the corruption and interpretation of the other books in the Hindu religion. Sikhism then came and said, wait, in fact, there's only one creator, and therefore our symbol is the number one, ik, and this Om, which is we say Onkar means creator. Ik Onkar. That itself, if you understand that meaning, what it means, it really defines the entire Sikh philosophy. So in Hinduism, you know the Om sign.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, all he did was put a ik in front of it, redefined it by saying one. That one just is not a number, but it indicates one humanity, one creator, oneness of all. And you expound on that one, and you will see it all comes down to there is only one.
Yeah.
Expounded itself afterwards, that one expands and expands and it continues, but it brings everything back. There's only one. We are all part of that creator.
And you know what's funny? Look at our currency, US currency. It says on it in Latin, I believe it is Latin, e pluribus unum, which is translated loosely from many one.
Exactly.
How
And we
many,
learned that in
and
the
yet how many
Masons.
people
Yes.
know this? How many people
Oh,
know this?
no. They need to look at the dollar
And why
bill
did
a
they
little
put that on
carefully.
there? You know,
Yes. Uh,
um, because they were influenced by the philosophies beyond. Many people say that this country was founded as a Christian nation. No, it was not. Matter of fact, I find it interesting, and I you want to get real literal. It talks about people talk about the separation of church and state.
mhm,
Well, there's nothing in there that refers to the church per se, because it
mhm,
doesn't say separation of mosque and state or temple and state or whatever other building you want to refer to.
mhm.
It talks about the free expression of the philosophy that you choose to follow, and that the government will neither suppress or condone, if you will, or support any one specific philosophy. That we are free in this country, in particular, to do that, which is one of the reasons why so many people want to come here.
Absolutely
And
true.
and I know there's a
Absolutely.
big whole argument over the immigration issue. We'll set that aside for right now. But did you have on your lips when you chose to come to this country as well as to become an American citizen? Did you have on your lips the United States, the land of opportunity? Was that at the forefront of your mind when you chose to come to the United States?
When I write a book, that's going to make a more beautiful explanation of that desire.
Hmm.
But Richard, I'm going to be honest. My desire was different. I loved the freedom,
Mm-hmm.
the expression, driving a car. Now, when I told you earlier, I drew a horse and a Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, that's the emblem of a Mustang.
Right.
Well, the freedom that we got that we never had in South Africa under the apartheid regime, that is something I looked forward to. When I first came here, even like I said, my intention was never to stay here completely. But when I walking up State Street, before I entered places, I would look for a sign, non-whites allowed. Because that's how I just came from South Africa, where we would have those signs where we were allowed to go and not to go. And coming here, the catalyst was to experience American culture, American tradition, going to Hollywood, meet Jacqueline Bisset, Olivia Newton-John, and I was 25 years old.
Mm,
And of course, the dream of exploring this country was always there,
mm.
always there.
Well, I'll tell you, folks. Virendra Singh is my guest, and we're talking about some very positive things to come about, and we're going to talk more about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Community, Virendra, is extremely important. It's sort of the core, if you will, to some degree. And to that end, you are going to endeavor to foster that community, not only through everything else that you've already shared with us, but also through another endeavor. And if we can talk a little bit about that in terms of being more involved with the group that sort of makes decisions for the community, hopefully listens to the community when it is making those decisions rather than just arbitrarily saying, this is the way we're going to do it. I understand that you are, so to speak, as the phrase goes, putting your hat in the ring for the Santa Barbara City Council. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's been a slight change. So let's talk about community first. That it
Okay.
founded itself directly into me eventually wanting to build a senior center in South Africa, which I started many years ago. This will comprise of during COVID time, we were going to house four seniors per room, but that showed us that that's not going to work. As that was a catalyst for COVID, it exploding by people living communally. So I had to change my whole concept in South Africa to making it single units per senior. So I have 42 units that I'm building in Durban, which we call Belmont Community Center, in front of my mom's home, which is a huge piece of property. I'm also endeavoring to build a multi faith prayer place that will really be used by all the different faiths of people living in this senior center. But in the evenings, it'll also be used as an after school daycare for the local kids. And I'm hoping to choose the seniors living there from all different races, formal education, and experiences. Like, for example, two plumbers, two electricians, two cooks. And they will be responsible for mentoring the children who will be coming there for after school daycare. So my vision is to have a blend, the union of the older seniors, making their lives more meaningful, including that of the kids, um, having that fusion and the benefit that both will have in that mentorship. So that's something I'm actively doing, and because I'm out of the country between 6 and 8 months of the year, 8 times, sorry, at least 6 months of the year. That was the catalyst that made me then finally choose not to run for council. But I did meet the person who also would have wanted to run and is running for council, and wonderful person, Gabe, and I am throwing my support behind him. There was a time when I was told by the different organizations that I belong to, financial and cultural, social, to run for mayor. And of course, I've worked closely with the mayors of each of the term, including Randy Rouse, who is fantastic. And together now, we are both throwing our support behind Eric Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what he stands for and what he does. And I have been working with the city for decades now. Um, some of the most important thing we need to understand in Santa Barbara, and this is very dear and close to my heart when I chose to do that, is that we need to make to Santa Barbara continue to prosper in every aspect. We forget Santa Barbara is a tourist town,
Mm-hmm.
and tourism is number one in Santa Barbara. And ironically, because this is my 40th year and I owned La Bamba Market for decades, a customer gave me a pre independent magazine, which was identical to The Independent, on October 1986. And that magazine, in the end of the page, the first page was La Bamba Market. But the last page was on rent control. And it was like, wow, rent control was even an issue then, and it's still an issue today. Very interesting arguments on both sides, but we won't get into that. But back to Santa Barbara being a tourist town, over the decades, when I worked with the SBPD, because of the different issues we always had downtown, um, I offered camera systems to monitor certain zones in our city that was needed to be monitored. Well ahead of its time, took it to city council. That idea was shut down by
Mm.
city council. Yet today, we have knock cameras all around. It's now a normal thing. The thing about is people who want to be career politicians come and run, make decisions for our city, and then they leave. And there's no accountability of the decisions they made and what was the consequence of it. So the two things that I'm proposing in the city this time is keep State Street closed for one direction only. Open
Mm.
State Street up in one direction, starting from Cabrillo all the way up to the Arlington. Reason for that is it's harder to walk up State Street. So it took us so long to get tourists, especially the cruise ships, to come by. They will only walk up as far as Haley. And if we have our continuous shuttling people up State Street and let them walk down, all the businesses will benefit, the tourists will benefit.
Mhm.
And, gone are the days people never really, rarely did window shopping through walking. People did it through driving. Think of what our parade, to bring our State Street parade fiesta back on State Street, major boost to tourism. I challenge everyone that who thinks they can make a business last in Santa Barbara. My business have been 34 years in Santa Barbara continuous. I will give them my recipes and say, you put your funding, go into State Street, open the business, and I will give you Mesa Pizza to run it. But you make the decision to make it to run it, and you will fail if State Street remains closed.
Mm.
Very few people have. In the process of even my nomination, I spoke to a lot of business owners, and they are dying. Again, businesses change like crazy. Just Google this, and you'll see the number of restaurants open and close. To that, I have this great idea proposed to. I think it's a great idea, Richard. One of the reasons I loved America and loved Santa Barbara is in awe of the culture and tradition. We have so many great people of the past and current who lived in Santa Barbara in the entertainment industry, whether they be producers, directors, actors, musicians. We come up with our own Santa Barbara Walk of Stars
Mm.
right from the bottom to the top. So people will walk through each of the stars looking for their names, taking out pictures, just like a Hollywood Walk of Stars.
Mhm.
We have that power to do it. And I was questioned, so who'll pay for the stars? Of course, it could be part business owners, it could be part community, our arts and culture, Santa Barbara Arts and Culture Division. All that will enhance tourism. So that was one of my ideas to bring Santa Barbara back to life. Um, but in terms of what we really need for the city,
Mhm.
we really need people to understand business. That's the truth. Business dies in Santa Barbara, all the other projects fall apart. We contribute tons in taxes and fees towards Santa Barbara. And people need to understand, like I was just told, we just had a fiesta in Santa Barbara, and there were so many people, and it was so great. Well, I say, think about when next time you walk past restaurants, look and see exactly what's on the plate, see how long people sit for, look at the turnover of tables. You may think that things are quote unquote rocking, but it's not.
Mm.
And if we do for those few days in the week or month or during, like we had the soccer, world soccer that we all benefited from, but the rest of the months and years, the amounts that we lost all this time, it's
Yeah.
impossible to make up. So business is very important in Santa Barbara.
Hmm. It is indeed. It is indeed. Well, we encourage folks to get involved in the community. In this case, we're talking about the Santa Barbara, primarily the city and the surrounding areas as well. We have certainly Summerlin and Carpinteria and Montecito, and then out to the west, Goleta. And we also have the valley that people go visit as well. And we encourage people to get out and enjoy the community that we have and meet people, say hello, and at the very least, when you're walking up and down State Street, flash a smile. It's not going to hurt anybody, and it makes a big
Yes.
difference. We hope that you will do that. As we continue talking with Virendra Singh here on Tell Me Your Story. Reverend Dr. D and Virendra Singh here on the program that brings you new paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Virendra, I want to thank you for giving us so much time again here on the program to talk about these issues, and I hope that I guess one of the questions I'd like to ask you before we wrap things up here is what you see, what you feel intuitively, shall we say? Let's just say for the next 20, 30, 40 years for not just Santa Barbara, but even for the United States as a whole, as we move forward beyond our 250th anniversary as a country founded back in, as we have put it, 1776.
Well, Richard, that's like looking into a crystal ball, and people will then say Nostradamus did that, and the rise and fall of different empires. And I've read a lot about that, where people try to forewarn me, like the Roman Empire, the sun never sets. Well, they in the British Empire rather, and the Roman Empire eventually fell. The British Empire fell, and our turn is coming. That's their philosophy. Well, I think we can beat this. The
Mm-hmm.
reason for that is the difference between all those other countries is the people. I
Mm-hmm.
just told you we have the most giving people in the world,
Yeah.
and we give in every form and manner, and it's the people that will make all that overcome all our adversaries, all the atrocities that are committed in our name for different periods, different administrations, uh, we will overcome everything, because at the end of the day, no matter what administration there is, Richard, each one thinks they're doing the best for America.
Mm.
Everyone needs to understand that there isn't one person that thinks I'm doing this because I want to hurt America. No, everyone loves it. It's just that we all don't agree with the manner and procedure that certain things are done. And in 30 and 40 years, we will still continue to be a beautiful, prosperous country that gives people the freedom like nowhere else in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have those final three questions I ask all of my guests. I've asked you before, but sometimes the answers change, and I'll ask those of you. But again, I thank you so much for participating in what we're trying to do here to make this world a better place for everyone. And again, I know everybody has a different definition of what is better. My question to those listening and watching is, what is your vision? What do you see as a better place? And I hope that you will take the time to consider the question of what is your vision of a better place. Also want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com, with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're also on YouTube and Rumble, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will subscribe as well as click notification. Hope you'll pick up a copy of my book, which is Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It is available in hardcover, paperback, as well as Kindle. We also hope that if you can help us out financially, we would be more than grateful for any support that you can give us by using Zella as well as PayPal. And you use the same email address for both, and it is richard@richarddugan.com. We also hope you'll take the time to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. And with all that being said, we move to our three final questions for our very special guest. And the first of those three is, who is Virendra Singh?
I am part of that same humanity we all belong to. I just have been blessed by my karma to come to this beautiful place and enjoy what it has to give. And I now want to give back so much to this country and to everyone else that who I believe needs it. And in terms of this country, my vision is we have to do more for the seniors and the people who are, they like to use the term residentially challenged instead of homeless. And I hope one day to find a huge piece of plot. Instead of building these huge homes that takes up a lot of place,
Mm-hmm.
little mobile units, tons of it
Yeah.
for our seniors and people of low income.
What gets you up in the morning?
My the thought of all the possibility of doing my interfaith work currently, and of course, moving that interfaith work to different parts of the world.
Mm. And finally, what was your best day?
The best day of my life. Wow. I would say it's eventually meeting my wife and marrying her in my way. That would be the best day of my life because she has been my greatest support in everything I do.
Mm. Well, once again, we thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And we thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. To my brother Michael, welcome to fatherhood. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.